Thank you so much, everyone. I will go ahead and kick this off. I'm Dr. Lisa Sanchez Johnson. I want to start first by saying how very sorry I am that I'm not there in person with you in Waimanalo. I'm actually presenting at another conference in Wisconsin at a health equity conference. So I just left Hawaii yesterday in order to get there in time. So I will begin by saying that it is really my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you to today's presentation, focus on equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the health professions. We're going to be talking about the journey to leadership and service from behavioral health professionals with diverse backgrounds. And I will say that in my opinion, this presentation more than any others is really going to feature, and I hope we will come across, the heart and the souls of individuals who are part of the Hawai'i Psychological Association and more broadly, the mental health professionals in our wonderful state of Hawaii. So I will begin here by having Dr. Takashima Lakasa join us in the next slide. Okay, go, Julie.
Thank you, Lisa. So we just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are currently on Kanaka Maoli, or Native Hawaiian land, and that much of this presentation was developed on that same land.
Thank you so much. We just thought we'd kick it off by showing you all of us smiling. This was on a day that we were practicing and we're not nervous, like a little bit of us are nervous today. So we wanted to show you that we had fun putting this presentation together. At the end of our 90 minutes today, we hope that we will accomplish the following objectives with you: to describe 2 ways that behavioral health professionals can use their skills to advocate for populations underrepresented in the behavioral health professions, workforce, and/or to advocate for communities of colors with behavioral health needs. Additionally, we hope that you will gain knowledge about how to integrate diversity and inclusion into your professional journey as a behavioral health professional. I'll give you a little bit of a roadmap. Hopefully, this is what we're doing already. So we're already on schedule. We're doing our welcome and learning objectives. We're going to start off by just very briefly talking about some definitions and framework. This is just basically to ground us and to level set where we are at in terms of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion work. We're going to spend then some time doing introductions, and all of our panelists today will be introducing themselves. They will have a slide that is up, a slide or a few slides, as they describe both their background and their journey in this area. Then we will be posing questions to the panelists. We have timed this out, and hopefully everyone will get a chance to speak and answer 2 different questions. There are 4 questions total, so there's going to be more than one person to gain a perspective of each question that is posed. Then everyone is going to give a chance to offer some advice. And then we're going to have basically questions from the audience, a good amount of time. I think we set aside 20 minutes or so. We'll see how this goes. And then we'll wrap up with some conclusions. Okay, so we're going to start off with some definitions. I put this up here, this photo of equality, because basically equality is showing here on the slide that everybody here would get the same bicycle. Right? When we're talking about equity, we're really giving people what they need in order to be successful. So as you can see on this slide here, everybody has a different type of bicycle. And I just love this because some of you may know I like to ride my bike, but this slide does not even represent myself. I actually ride an adult tricycle. It's really a cute little thing that I ride, and that's really what I would need. It's a little 3-wheeler. Honestly, it looks like a kid's bicycle, but it's for adults. So when we talk about equity, it's really the fair treatment of all while striving to identify and eliminate inequities and barriers. So that's equity. When we talk about diversity, this is basically just differences or having differences across groups. And it can really be in any dimension. It could be health, physical or mental health status, race, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, race, and class. That's kind of what we mean, of course, when we talk about diversity. Inclusion means that everyone is included. They feel they're visible and heard, and all are considered. And then we have this newer term that's used in the literature called belonging. And this means that everyone is treated and basically feels like a full member of the larger community and could thrive. And this concept of belonging really there's a lot of literature in this area that shows that it's related to reductions in anxiety, depression, and hopelessness. It is related also to happiness and well-being. And it basically draws on people's needs to affiliate themselves with a specific group and have their acceptance. So that's the word belonging. And I'm going to have Dr. Takeshima Lakasa introduce another concept to us that's really important in this area.
I'm just going to share an additional definition for the concept of social justice, which is a broad term, but I appreciate APA's definition because it takes that kind of broad construct and makes it very concise and accessible and understandable. So APA's definition is commitment to creating fairness and equity in resources, rights, and treatment of marginalized individuals and groups of people who do not share equal power in society. So as I mentioned earlier, this definition and some of our other definitions were from, or at least informed by, APA's EDI framework, which APA has developed over the past 5 years, built upon decades of APA's commitment to EDI. And the purpose is to guide a coordinated, integrated, systemic organizational effort to embed an EDI lens throughout all aspects of our work. The framework outlines some guiding principles of the best practices in organizational EDI work and a tripartite EDI model that conceptualizes and organizes this work across 3 levels: the organization, the field of psychology, and then society at large. It was co-authored by Mesa Akbar, who is the Chief Diversity Officer of APA. And I just want to plug that she's presenting tomorrow afternoon, the keynote, one of the keynotes. She's a really inspiring speaker, and we'll talk more about this framework in the context of APA's comprehensive approach to EDI. So I encourage you all to catch her talk if you can. Having been involved in APA governance leadership for a decade now, I can personally attest to the meaningful change that I have experienced within the org in just the past several years due to the commitment to this framework and what Mesa and her team has achieved. So I hope to share a little bit more about those experiences a little bit later in this talk.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to kick this off. I am actually serving as the discussant today as well as the chair, and I do want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Catherine Chun, who is also the co-chair in this panel today. So thank you, Katie. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get my introduction kicked off, and then I can take a deep breath here while I listen to and enjoy everyone else's part of this presentation. We each have about 4 minutes, give or take, however long we take to kind of get this part through. So this is myself, and what this slide is just, I'm going to go through a few things on this slide and then talk story with you a little bit. So in terms of my personal identifiers, I identify as a Puerto Rican female and multiracial. My father was German, and definitely my identity is being born and raised in Hawaii. I've had different leadership roles because, again, this presentation is also about leadership, the journey to leadership and service. I currently am a professor, and this is the day that I became a full professor. My family, I'm on the in Wisconsin right now, and my family, of course, made leis for me, and I really stood out because there's not very many leis that you can get in Wisconsin. So I am serving as the Associate Cancer Center Director for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Belonging at the Medical College of Wisconsin. Previously serving as Vice Chair for Research in the Department of Family and Preventive Medicine at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Have had different roles that I have played in terms of DEI work. Most specifically also in the Society of Behavioral Medicine, where I founded and chaired a ethnic minority and multicultural health group, as well as a health equity group within the the National Latinx Psychological Association. I also serve on as a member of the board of directors for the Hawaii Psychological Association and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, where I also serve as the Chief Diversity Officer. And then my own business in Hawaii is being the owner of Multicultural Health and Wellness, which is a clinical psychology practice. I do consulting work related to DEI as part of I guess, another company that's related to this called Hawaii Health Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Consulting. And then I also have a related business focused on Hispanic health and wellness. These are some of my areas that I practice in and have received funding throughout my career. So above and beyond that, what I really want to share with you is, it may sound kind of funny, but I'll just jump in, is that I really want to share with you how I came to be Puerto Rican and a Latina female. And you might say, well, Dr. Lisa, you were born that way. So it might sound funny, but what I'd like to share with you, honestly, is how my heart and soul and my identity became even more Latina and Puerto Rican. So I graduated from Kapiolani Community College and University of Hawaii at Manoa in 1991. And I moved to Arizona to work with a health psychologist, where I served as a psychometrician and a psychology assistant, and I conducted research there as well. So populations that we served included patients on a burn unit, patients undergoing craniofacial surgery, all the things that, you know, a health psychologist might be, or the field of health psychology might be involved in. And we did psych testing in urban and very rural settings. In fact, a number of times, many times, we went to drive out to the wooded areas in northern Arizona to do psych testing in very rural areas. And it was here, actually, though, in the urban area of Phoenix, that I became Latina. Now, how could this happen? Because I was always Puerto Rican. But my journey there was that I would often be in the hospital. And this is for the first time in my life, people would come up to me and start to speak Spanish. Now, I had never been born and raised in Hawaii. Nobody had ever done that to me. Nobody ever looked at me like I was a Latina. Nobody really asked. I mean, I grew up in a very Puerto Rican family. We cooked the traditional foods and music and dance that you would expect. So I knew that I was Puerto Rican, and I knew what my family celebrated, but it never really dawned on me that I could go on the outside of Hawaii and people could identify me at a time when I wasn't really identifying as a Hispanic female. I hardly knew what that word even meant, or a Latina female, but people identified, you know, that in myself. So as people started to look at me a certain way, I sort of wondered, well, how do they even know? And I want to tell you that our people, my people, Latinos and Hispanics, we get so excited when there is another person of our background, you know, and being in Hawaii, we kind of blend easily with many other ethnic groups. That is both, you know, a pleasure, but also it is associated with some maybe undercounting and of individuals, like not really seeing us being visible. So that's kind of the orientation that I came from. And as people were beginning to identify me as Latina, I became more Latino or Hispanic, so much so that at one point in my career, I actually changed my last name to honor and respect and include my mom's maiden name, which is Sanchez. So most people, if you graduate from UH Manoa or went to Marino High School, where I graduated from, you know, Lisa Johnson. Well, suddenly I became Lisa Sanchez Johnson, both as a way to honor my heritage, but also so that other people could more easily identify me, especially students, as a Latina female. So this is my little introduction, and I'm happy to say more about that in the future as we're beginning. So at this point, I'm going to kick it off and ask our next presenter, Dr. Catherine Chun, to introduce herself. So welcome, Dr. Chun.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So just to put this out there, if you're not my student or my client, just call me Katie. When you graduate, you can call me Katie. I think that's what we do at HSBP. I am an associate professor at HSBP, our PsyD program at Chaminade, and that's my full-time gig. And I love it. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. My side gig, which helps ground me, is doing family therapy at the Family Strengthening Center under Family Programs Hawaii. And that's 1 day a week. And then my full-time gig is as a daughter, a granddaughter, a spouse, a mom of sons, which has a slight cultural difference than being a mom of daughters at one time, and then the blending is wonderful as everybody evolves. I'm also a mom of a dog, which is also a full-time gig, especially when my spouse is on a trip. So I was born and raised here in Hawaii, and I went to Iolani School. I went away for undergraduate and graduate school, and then came back to Hawaii for my postdoc, and then stayed licensure. And then this Hawaii is really my ground base and always has been. So as someone who is half Chinese, half Northern European, the most recent immigration of family members was 4 generations ago. And so I do have the privilege sometimes of blending into different environments. Being Kama'aina, I'm keenly aware of not being biologically Native Hawaiian, and yet wanting so much to serve the Native Hawaiian community. I am also very aware that of when people guess that I'm of ethnicities that I'm not. It's kind of exciting, as if I can add that on, but you can't really, right? But it's the exploration of the heritage of the family history that fascinates me, always has, but even more so as I do family therapy. And I'm helping the people that I work with to explore their heritage, because there are trickle-down influences through the generations that contribute to how we get here. Very rarely do people immigrate because it was their choice, or because it was they loved life where they came from. There was some kind of influence that brought them to where they are. And anyway, I could go on, and my students, you're going to hear more in class. But anyway, I'm happy to pass the mic now over to Rose Evelyn. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katie. Aloha. My name is Rose. My name is Dr. Rose Evelyn Friedheim, and it is just so nice to be here in person. I love that. I love getting to gather and to feel the allyship and the solidarity, and also acknowledging those that are attending virtually, also really appreciating your presence and the accessibility of technology. Like all of you, I have intersecting identities. The diversity dimension that feels important for me to highlight today is my disability identity. I'm sharing this today, A, to challenge myself to become more comfortable sharing about this identity professionally, and B, because being a provider with a disability is underrepresented in our field. I felt called to challenge myself to show up today so that this aspect of diversity can be included in our conversation. I also recognize the many layers of privilege that have afforded me to be here today. So I'm here to also help give voice to those aspiring trainees, current trainees, and providers with various disabilities who are not safe identifying as having a disability in our field. In addition to being a traumatic brain injury survivor, I'm a pre-licensed clinical psychologist and a certified somatic ecotherapist. I pursued my doctoral training at the Wright Institute in Berkeley, California. During my pre-doctoral internship at Through the Looking Glass, my clinical focus was on the intersection of infant mental health, early intervention, and disability justice. I recently completed my postdoctoral residency at Hamakua Kohala Health Center in Laupahoehoe on Hawaii Island, providing rural behavioral health services to patients of all ages from Keiki to Kapuna. My current leadership roles include being a Hawaii MCH Lend Fellow. I see some of my fellows in the audience, so thank you for your allyship. We are fellows under the Maternal and Child Health Division, pursuing advocacy and leadership education for families of children with neurodevelopmental and other related disabilities. I also serve on the Hawaii Psychological Association as a board member, representing the needs and patients of providers, the needs of patients and providers of Hawaii Island. I was invited to join today because in addition to being on the Rural Health Committee and Legislative Action Committees, I greatly am committed to my involvement on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee with my fellow co-presenters. So next slide, please. So student leadership. My experience as a student trainee with multiple disabilities was very challenging. I also have visual impairment, to say the least. As a second year student in my PsyD program, I had brain surgery. Fighting to continue to pursue my degree, I had to spend 6 years in my doctoral training pushing against an ableist academic system. This was even more prevalent as I was navigating higher education, and I did not have many examples to follow. Additionally, my school's learning disability liaison also managed our school's finances. So our request for accommodations for myself and other students with learning differences to have equal access to our doctoral education were often devalued to, well, is that really worth the cost to our school? I had multiple hearings against my school, and fortunately, with great persistence and strong allyship, I was provided the accommodations necessary to access my education. These lived experiences deepened my interest in neurodiversity and my commitment to advocating to fostering a disability inclusive environment for myself and fellow neurodivergent students and trainees and providers. I was fortunate that the year before I entered my PsyD program, fellow students started the SNAG group, or Students with Neurodiversity Advocacy Group. For 5 years, I helped to facilitate peer support groups to support neurodivergent PsyD students to thrive in their academic and clinical settings. Despite the presence of SNAG on campus, the administrators still pushed back against the accommodations we were requesting, asserting that there was not enough students with disabilities for these accommodations to be prioritized. Therefore, I joined with other STAG peers, and we surveyed our PsyD program student body to better understand the experiences and needs of students with learning style differences and disabilities. We designed, administered, and collected data assessing what accommodations the students needed but felt uncomfortable requesting. This led to proof that we could offer to the administrators, demonstrating a higher prevalence of students with disabilities and a recognition that most of the students reported not feeling comfortable disclosing their disability, nor requesting accommodations that they deserved, both at their program and their training site. This led to us developing a handbook for current and future students to learn how to navigate disability accommodations at our school. We also collaborated with administrators and planned a community-wide forum and a cross-cohort mixer. So these were all opportunities to kind of have to be seen and to be known in what could otherwise be an invisible experience. So I'll go to the last slide for this part. So if you see my publications and presentations, I've presented about this experience having a brain injury, but only within peer-to-peer TBI support groups. And once as a speaker for Hawaii Brain Injury Association annual fundraiser. But this is the first time that I've shared about my disability identity at a professional convention as a psychologist. As a new part of my identity to present about, I appreciate the courage of my colleagues on the panel here today, who are also speaking about facets of their marginalized identity of diversity that they are bravely sharing today. It is important to challenge ourselves professionally with a mutual goal of increasing diversity and inclusivity in the field of psychology, and this convention is a great place for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friedheim. I will say to our audience here, you can see we have just gotten started. This is going to be a powerful day. And as echoed already, some of us are presenting for the very first time in this space. So I thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for that wonderful grounding as well. So I'm going to next invite Dr. Concepcion to introduce herself.
Hi, aloha and mabuhay. My name is Dr. Rochelle Concepcion, and the elements of my identity that are, I guess, key to highlight is I am a daughter of immigrants, a second-generation Filipino American. I was born in San Francisco and raised in Daly City, California, which is very critical to my identity just because we Filipino Americans that are from different parts of the United States have very different ways that we identify ourselves and interact with our peers. So yes, born and raised in Daly City. I spent a big chunk of my early childhood in the Philippines. Therefore, my first language was Tagalog. So when I returned to the United States, I actually came back speaking primarily Tagalog and had to relearn English. Let's see, other elements of my identity. I completed my college, my bachelor's and my master's degrees in Southern California, in the Inland Empire. Let's see. I'm also a twin mom to boys. So boy moms are a very interesting, we deal with a very interesting demographic when it comes to our kids. And my boys are actually adults. They're 27 years old. So that's another huge part of my identity. I'm a military spouse. My husband is active duty in the Air Force. And on the flip side, I'm actually a field grade officer in the Hawai'i Air National Guard. So I kind of outranked my husband. So a more recent part of my identity is I experienced a stroke 2 years ago, hence the minor speech impediment that you're seeing me kind of produce as I'm speaking. I'm still in recovery, so it's been a part of my identity that I'm still having to navigate, especially with being somebody who was so involved and active in different activities as I was growing up and during a big part of my adulthood. So it's huge, and kind of similar to Rose Evelyn, this is the first time I'm actually talking a little bit about my identity as a stroke survivor in a public space. I had to step away from leadership 2 years ago as president of the Asian American Psychological Association because I was going through a lot of recovery and rehabilitation and didn't think that I could cut it as a leader. So let me see my current positions. I'm currently in medical evaluation board, MEB psychologist at Tripler. That was something that I was fortunate to have returned to full-time work after my stroke. I'm a public health officer with the 154th Medical Group, something I'm grateful for because despite some of the impairments from my stroke, the Air Guard was able to allow me to continue serving. Next, some of my leadership positions that I'm currently involved in. Like Dr. Chen, I'm a clinical division rep for the Hawaii Psychological Association and this is a disaster response coordinator for HPA. Hi, Dr. Logan. I am a founding member and a co-chair of a newly established organization called the Filipino Mental Health Initiative, an organization that focuses primarily on reducing stigma within the Filipino American community within Hawaii. I'm actually serving on the APA Division 5, Section 5, which is the Society for Asian American Feminist Psychologists, on their conference committee during their conference, which will take place here on Oahu in June 2024. I have flyers in my bag if you need them. Some of my past leadership experiences for the Asian American Psychological Association, association actually held several different roles. I was their past president up until 2021, vice president, board member, convention co-chair. I was a leadership fellows co-chair, as well as their inaugural leadership, a member of their inaugural leadership fellows cohort. I was also co-chair and finance chair for the Asian American Psychological Association Division on Filipino Americans, as well as past co-chair for their division on women. So that's everything about me in a nutshell. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate everyone on this panel who have just been really supportive with regards to being able to talk about some of the elements of my identity that are meaningful to me today. So I will pass the mic on to, is it Dr. Accra?
Yes, it's Dr. Accra. Thank you so much, Dr. Concepcion. My heart is full of joy for just you being here and everyone else that has presented thus far. So thank you. Yes, Dr. Accra, please, we welcome you.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everybody. My name is Fran Accra, and I am currently working as a staff psychologist at the Center for Cognitive Behavior Therapy at the University of Hawaii. You can click more, Lisa.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You can put all of it. Thank you. As you can see, I have kind of two areas of specialization. I got my PhD in applied developmental psychology, and then re-specialized into clinical psychology actually here at UH. As you can see also, my areas of expertise look almost nonsensical when you look at them on the page. I have such a varied history and professional career. I believe strongly in evidence-based practices, which is interesting when you think about it in terms of EDI and how that research comes about and how colonized the information we currently have are. I got certified as an aeromedical psychologist. Like Rochelle, I am a military spouse. I have never served. I don't think I would be compliant enough to have any kind of success as a green suitor. But I was married to a service member who retired 2 years ago. I'm very interested in trauma-focused treatment, but with children and adults. I've served military and veteran population, and it's an area that's near and dear to my heart. As an applied developmental psychologist, actually, the early stages of my career were focused on early childhood, so 0 to 8, and I did a lot of early intervention research in that first chapter of my professional career. So as I mentioned, I currently work at UH Manoa, the Center for CBT, which I feel really lucky to be part of. One of the types of CBT that we practice, we call it modular CBT. It's a very tailored, individualized form of delivering cognitive behavior therapy to folks. A lot of our treatment are very data-driven, which allows for the flexibility to incorporate those diversity elements for our clients. So basically, each of our cases are kind of approached almost like a single case study, where we are able to incorporate multiple dimensions in the way we deliver evidence-based treatment to our families. So it's been a pleasure to be part of that and really help with the dissemination and implementation work that we do. I have multiple diversity dimension. The first one I want to say is how new I am to this. I've given a lot of talks. I'm very comfortable typically talking in public, but I was very intimidated when I first accepted to come and talk to this with this panel, because I am very new in terms of a role of leadership or even talking about EDI issues. My expertise is very much in my lived experience as a minority, and it was a leap of faith and courage in starting my journey. So I'm kind of here really representing somebody who might be on the sideline, really interested in becoming a more active member and a more vocal advocate, and maybe is not sure where to start. So I'm kind of here to represent that aspect of it. I'm of mixed race. My mother is Haitian, and she can trace back her roots in Haiti all the way up to colonial times before the Haitian Revolution. And my father was a Lebanese immigrant. He was first generation. My grandparents left Lebanon during the war and settled in the Caribbean. And my dad was born in Haiti, but both of his parents were of Lebanese descent. And growing up, I kind of had that, I see it as an opportunity to really straddle those two cultures who cohabit in Haiti, but at least in my days did not blend very much together. There was some tension between the two groups, with the older, wealthier Haitian families valuing more European culture and devaluing the Middle Eastern immigrants that were settling all over the Caribbean and South America at the time, because they were traders typically, and by default would deal with more lower level trading and would acquire Creole as their learned language as opposed to French. And there was a lot of stigma associated with speaking Creole and not French. So they were stigmatized and ostracized in Haiti for a long time. And as they became wealthier, kind of kept to themselves and kind of rejected the idea of integrating into society when they had the financial means probably to kind of push their way through. I recognize that as a light-skinned Afro-Caribbean person, it does afford me some privilege. I jokingly say that I'm ethnically ambiguous, so I can navigate a lot of environments, but also recognizing that I'm still not immune to the microaggression that comes with that otherness, with the way I look. I'm a woman, and I've had to navigate a field where there are predominantly male psychologists, male professors, and finding my way through that. English is not my first language. I was raised speaking French and Haitian Creole. I learned English in middle and high school, and I had to navigate all my undergraduate and graduate studies in a language that was not my primary language, and that probably created some barriers, and is in part the reason why my background is so diverse. Is I had to kind of take the long way to where I am today. I'm a first generation immigrant in the US. As I said, I was born and raised in Haiti. My kids are born and raised here, but I still have an accent, obviously. And I've had to really meander my way throughout the United States and at some point Canada, trying to figure out where I belonged. And Hawaii was the first place after I moved out of Haiti where I felt like I belonged. So I decided to make it my home. And after my husband retired, that was the condition to which I said yes to marriage, is that we would come back here in Hawaii. And we've been back for 2 years, and I'm looking forward to raising my kids here. I really value this land. I'm honored to be allowed to make a life here.
What a beautiful description. Thank you so much for also pointing out to everyone here the diversity that is represented in this panel. And, again, DEI is for everyone. We accept everyone, and the Diversity and Equity Steering Committee is, we've been so pleased to have you join us, and, it is a place for everyone. So with that said, I will go ahead and have Dr. Takashima Lakasa wrap up with her introduction. Julie?
Going last, I have so many tough acts to follow. I'm just so grateful to be co-presenting with this diverse group of amazing, accomplished, brave women. First, it's really culturally congruent for me to acknowledge my mentors and their contributions to my professional journey. There are too many to name individually, but I'm in debt and gratitude to each of them. So when I was thinking about how to introduce myself today, I decided I'm not going to talk about my multiple day jobs, which you can see on the slide. Instead, I'm going to briefly share my journey of public service advocacy and leadership roles in HPA and APA. Because whenever I present on this topic nationally, I've gotten feedback that it's helpful to understand how I got to the space that I am in now. So I actually started in HPA as a student rep. Props to student reps, which among many other awesome opportunities led me to cultivate dozens of incredible mentors, who many encouraged me to take on legislative chair for HPA as a postdoc, which was a crazy amount of work, but also opened the door to serve as APA Federal Advocacy Coordinator. And that role got me a spot for APA's annual Practice SPTA Leadership Conference. And that first conference completely changed my professional leadership trajectory in terms of the opportunities and confidence that I gained as a leader. I'm probably close to like 10 of these conferences at this point, and they are still my absolutely favorite conference of the year. And now I'm starting to feel like I can pay all that benefit I reaped forward in some small ways. That conference led to building the confidence for me to run for APA governance, starting with the Committee on Rural Health. And it also provided the opportunity for me to run for the Committee of State Leaders, which I eventually chaired last year. And I really feel like I've been able to make some meaningful change within APA in terms of advocating for and creating new pathways to APA leadership for people of color. Concurrently, I ran for the Board of Professional Affairs in APA. And after serving on the executive committee, I'm in my last year on that board and am getting to finish as part of the Practice EDI liaison team of APA's Board of Professional Affairs. I also held a few other HPA roles as I was doing this APA work on our diversity subcommittees, our rural health, public education, convention subcommittees. And then while I was serving on HPA's executive committee during my time on the presidential triad several years ago, but my legislative advocacy work has been my greatest passion because of the opportunity that it provides me to work with colleagues I love, doing meaningful advocacy work that concretely impacts the most underserved communities around me. Last year, I was elected by HPA membership to serve as your council representative, which is the primary governing body of APA. It's the legislative body of APA with full power and authority over all organizational affairs and funds of the association. And just to close, as a naturalized immigrant from Japan and a mixed-race ECP, I feel like I've been able to bring my unique minority voice to all of these experiences. And I'm honored to share a little bit of those experiences with you today in hopes that something I have experienced might resonate with some of you, as I believe we're all gathered today with a common interest in advancing EDI issues.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Takeshima Lakasa. Now, at this point, we're going to go basically like a round robin, right? And have everyone have an opportunity to answer some questions. So I will kick us off here. So we're going to have 3 individuals answer this question. And here's a question. So what dimensions of your identities have influenced your personal and professional journey? So we're going to go ahead and keep this question up here. And I encourage our audience also to, as you're listening to the responses here and you hear their diversity in terms of their answers, to maybe lean in and think of how you might answer this question. So if we can have Dr. Concepcion start us off.
I don't like going first. So some of the right now, when I was thinking about this question this morning, I actually wrote some notes on my wonderful index cards. The first element of my identity that I think has been the most influential has been my Filipina or Pinay identity. And a big part of like what I recall growing up and just going through my leadership journey is like having to navigate the elements of my culture, which were conflicting. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a child of immigrants. And of course, my parents values and their just ways of looking at the world differed significantly from myself as an American-born Filipina. So a lot of the time, their values of like not making waves, not stirring up trouble, really conflicted with my needing to question everything. So it caused a lot of tension between myself and my parents. And by the way, my parents were a lot older as well. They had me in their 40s. So there was even more of a generational gap between myself and my parents, especially when I was trying to just identify, build my identity and just kind of grow up and just be accepted within my communities. I recall when I was writing some of my notes, especially when I was reflecting on seeking out leadership opportunities, my mom used to always tell me, if you're really good, people will call you and ask for you. And when I was growing up, I wasn't an overachiever. I kind of saw myself as like average. So when I thought about going for leadership positions within AEPA or even within HPA, I constantly questioned myself and thought, do I deserve to be at this table? And interestingly enough, when we were meeting yesterday to prepare for today's talk, the first thing I thought was, I have significant imposter syndrome because I don't know if I belong to this table. So that's constantly been like the voice in the back of my head as I was just navigating like my growth and my leadership and even my personal journey. I think often of intergenerational trauma that my parents experienced as immigrants, especially as my mom traveled to the United States with a 6th grade education, very few dollars in her pocket, and having to make a home for herself by herself in the United States. And I felt like a lot of that was passed on to me, the burden of just being that child who takes care of her parents as she ages. And I think that, I always keep that in the back of my mind, especially when I'm putting myself out there, just to ground myself and just kind of remind myself of the sacrifices that is taken to get me to the place that I am today. Another element of my community, of my identity that I often reflect on is just being a woman in a male dominant space, especially being a woman in the military. I think that it's driven me to strive to be better, in a sense, kind of strive to be better than my male counterparts, but then also fight some of the stereotypes of women in the military. Some of them stereotypes of being really sensitive, some of the stereotypes of being women only being the dependents of their husbands who are active duty members. So it's really kind of propelled me forward in terms of like just where I've come, where I've gone, and just even my journey as a leader. As much as possible, as a military member, as a major in the Air National Guard, my biggest driving factor has been just taking care of the people beneath me and just making sure that they know their value and not feel like anybody has any place to put them down or make them feel less than. And then finally, my most recent element of my identity is just being a stroke survivor and learning to advocate for myself a lot more, especially going through something as traumatic as experiencing a stroke suddenly in the middle of a workout is something that hopefully no one should ever have to experience. But learning to advocate for myself to my doctors and even to other people who look at me as I'm walking around or even running and think that there's nothing wrong with me has been like a big part of like learning to accentuate or actually, make my voice heard and louder. A big part, like something that I'm still constantly working on is reminding myself to slow down and learning to accept that my body and my mind have undergone significant changes as a consequence of my stroke. It's still something I'm working on, but I'm learning to become more proud of myself for how far I've come and, what the road ahead, leads me to. So thank you.
Thank you. This is so powerful. I just want to give us a space to just take in what you just said, and acknowledging how beautifully inspirational it is that you are here. And as we were preparing, as Dr. Concepcion has explained, as we were preparing, there was a lot of, difficult moments in terms of sharing, but beautiful moments of that we all saw such strengths in each other. And, just celebrating that in this panel is something I really want to honor in each of you. And thank you for going first. It is hard to be first. So I will switch this up and have Dr. Chun. Katie, would you like to present next? On the same question, what about your dimensions of your identity and how does it influence your personal and professional journey?
That's funny, Lisa. I was going to ask you to go next. Nice work there. So navigating multiple identities has been my life from birth, navigating multiple cultures, navigating what was on the outside when I was younger and more inside as I get older. I think it was, so I went to CSPP when it was in Alameda. I chose that program because of it being well known for having a strong, as at the time, called multicultural program. We call it differently now, but at the time in the 90s, it had and still has a very strong multicultural program. That was really important to me and always has been. And that is something I really value about where I work now. The piece that I decided to keep was I got married during grad school and I decided to keep my last name Chun. There are many different reasons for that, but part of it was about representation and that it's like I mentioned before, it's my grounding, the balance between between the collectivistic and individualistic cultures that we all navigate was always a constant. And part of that, the do I belong here thing always came up. I always navigated toward pretty diverse folks to hang out with. And yet part of me felt like, well, half of me is Northern European. So do I belong here? Can I be here too? And that didn't come from how people treated me. Everybody was very inclusive. It came from my own exploration of my own personal identity. And that's something that professionally I like to really explore with my students, with my clients. One of my drives toward joining our Diversity and Equity Steering Committee, which we're renaming, I believe, and getting a chance to serve as an advocate. So that's a lot of the professional journey. There's of course more to it for everybody. Another piece is that growing up, I watched my friends with their single ethnic identity practice cultural practices, customs from the country of origin of their ancestors. And that was very exciting. For mine, it was always about food because we were trickled down so far in the generations and so much was lost. So there was always a grief there. And I admit it's still there about the loss of culture and language and the constant hunting for what was my ancestors, the truths. I'll tell you a ridiculous story I have I'll admit. When I was little, I read about Chinese women having bound feet. So I was like, oh, of course, my great grandmother had bound feet. And my sister was like, no, she didn't. our ancestors weren't wealthy enough to have bound feet. And she brought me back down to earth with the reality that of what goes with privilege and what goes without. And so my great grandmother had very healthy feet that she could walk on. So anyway, that's part of how I navigate my world. I will also say that I plan to live to be 100. So I'm about middle age now. So as I age, there's certain influences, right? So I always found that my hair color, my brown hair, was a blend of my dad's black hair and my mom's lighter brown hair. And I valued having brown hair. As the gray creeps in, and I embrace the possibility of not going back for a hair appointment for highlights, or lowlights. It's a different reality, right? As far as the age dimension and how I advocate for people of different populations navigating as a parent, of kids still growing up, as a daughter of aging parents who could use our help with the yard work more than we probably have time for. And the different levels of what makes up one's diverse identities, that goes very deeply into each of the classes that I teach. It's really important that my students grasp their own diverse identity dimensions and that they recognize that of their clients, so that they can recognize what might be important to their clients and what might speak to their experiences. And okay, I'm rambling again. You're just to tap me if I ramble. So anyway, I could go on and on, but I find the personal and professional intertwined so closely by this stage in life, and I'm okay with that. Lisa?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really powerful. I'll just say briefly, because this was also a question assigned to me as well. So I'll just go briefly to just say that my Puerto Rican background and my multiracial background have definitely influenced my journey for sure. As I explained to you, my journey of realizing how other people were seeing me caused me to really lean into that part of me. My first experience actually having a leadership role, because again, this is also about leadership, actually was at the University of Hawaii. And so a couple of people that you may know, so Alana Wade Coffey and I and Shirley Weefering, we started the undergraduate University of Hawaii undergraduate psychology club. It's called UHUG, okay, because they didn't have psychi at that time. And so these, early leadership experiences are so critical, and we really encourage people to lean in on opportunities that are presented to you. This journey as me becoming more Latino led me to take on other responsibilities in graduate school as a Multicultural Association of Psychology students, or MAPS as we called it. Other roles in terms of the Latino psychologists of the Midwest, and definitely in the National Latino Psychological Association. So, our identity and our cultures and our backgrounds, they are our strengths. And I hope that you're seeing so far that the identities that people are sharing with you, they really did make this a positive aspect of their professional work and their personal journeys as well. So thank you for that. I will move forward and let's see what we have in terms of our next question. Okay, so our next question is, how can we promote equity, inclusivity, and successful outcomes for mental health providers and trainees with diverse disabilities and other marginalized identities? And for this question, we have Dr. Concepcion, Dr. Akra, and Dr. Friedheim. So if you would like, you could just jump in and present.
Apparently, I'm getting thrown in under the bus first.
Okay. We didn't hear.
I guess I want to start by maybe sharing a little bit of a story about my own journey before really tackling how I approach this professionally. I really wanted to acknowledge some of the colleagues I had when I was working at the VA here in Honolulu at VA PICS, because it really was a pivotal moment for me, very formative. I think it brought me a lot of clarity and really moved me from the contemplation to action. While I was there, I was invited to join their training committee and also their EDI committee, which I gratefully accepted. And I was so incredibly impressed and in awe of the amount of intentional effort and thought and work they put into not just, paying lip service to those concepts, but really implementing them in their training program. Hours spent reviewing with a microscope their internship application process to make sure that they would promote equity among their applicants. And that really, in combination with me having just come from spending 8 years living as a minority in southern state in the United States, which is not always friendly to visible or invisible minorities. It really was that turning point for me that there was something I could do, as in, somebody who's fiercely believes in evidence-based practice. Accepting the status quo was no longer something that I was comfortable living with, that there are things that can be done, efforts that can be done. So when I moved into my position at UH Manoa, I really took that message with me and really started in my own work as a clinical supervisor with my student by being more intentional about inviting those conversations with the students I supervised. So it was something that was obviously not forced on any of my students, but I wanted them to feel comfortable disclosing. I'm looking at one of my prior supervisees. Feel comfortable disclosing their own dimension if they wanted to, and making it part of our supervision conversation. So when barriers or obstacles came up for them, it didn't matter whether it was related to one of those identities or dimension, or it was just more of an instrumental barrier to their career progression. We approached it with the same pragmatism and objectivity that, as your supervisor, let's work together to come up with a solution to allow you to pursue the things you want to do. So that was how I personally brought it into my own life and into my career. And so when also HPA, I joined HPA, and there was an opportunity to join the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, I decided to take the leap, and initially was probably more of a sideliner, just an observer. But with this incredible panel that I'm sitting with today, that is not always an option. They push and encourage and cheer you on, and then you sign up for a thing and then question your sanity later on because you're like, I'm not an expert. Why would I be sitting on this panel? So I guess how do we promote it is really to start somewhere, start anywhere, not to wait for the right amount of knowledge, not to wait for the right level of expertise, and to take it where you have it. Whether it is on an informal individual level as a staff psychologist, as a professor, as a colleague, and really model that approach, that mentality, not being able to falter, to make errors, to misspeak, to be the one engaging in macroaggression instead of being on the receiving end of it, and acknowledging that it's a journey for everybody, and modeling that humility, and making it okay for people to try and fail rather than not try at all. Because I think the silence that I experienced sometimes living in certain areas of the United States was deafening, really, that it was the elephant in the room that nobody spoke about, and it was one that could not be addressed. So that's my I guess my 2 cents on how do you start by promoting. Start somewhere, start anywhere. Okay. In the, I love Maya Angelou. She says, do the best you can until you know better, and once you know better, do better. And that's kind of the philosophy and approach I have when it comes to my own efforts in promoting diversity and equity and inclusion.
I love it.
next, Lisa?
Yes, this is so inspirational. Dr. Friedheim, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Dr. Concepcion, for the efforts that you make as a supervisor. So my panel contribution today is going to be grounded in the literature. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So this literature that I'm presenting demonstrates that people with disabilities experience concerning rates of ableism and are significantly underrepresented within our healthcare education. Focusing on healthcare professionals and trainees is important in enhancing diversity and inclusion of equity deserving groups within our workforce. So today I'm going to be focusing on how to increase diversity and inclusion in trainees and kind of address that. So despite the high prevalence of disability in the United States, people with disabilities have not been consistently included in measuring the prevalence of diverse groups in psychology. Using publicly available data from the APA, the Association for Psychological Postdoctoral Internship Centers, and the APA Center for Workforce Studies, researchers have demonstrated that people with disabilities appear to be underrepresented in psychology and likely within higher education. However, given the trend of increased presence of other diverse groups in psychology, the lack of similar growth of trainees with various disabilities is concerning and may represent one of the most marginalized groups in the field. Utilizing the data from APIC, the Association of Psychology Postdoctoral and Internship Centers, researchers surveyed from 2005 to 2018 internship applicants. They analyzed the trends in representation of both disability overall and different types of disabilities. The researchers found that a number of survey respondents with disabilities had increased over time, driven by significant increases in the number of correspondents that were reporting chronic health conditions, mental illness, learning, and cognitive disabilities. However, other types of disabilities did not significantly change. These results indicate a recently growing representation of psychology trainees with disabilities, yet there is still a lack of accommodations being provided. In a follow-up study, these same researchers sought to better understand the characteristics and experiences of psychologists and trainees with disabilities. 56 trainees and psychologists with doctoral training in clinical counseling, social, school, and rehabilitation psychology completed the survey. Over half, 57%, were practicing psychologists, 42% current trainees. Research revealed that the majority of the participants reported experiencing disability-related discrimination during their training, and less than 1/3 had received the mentorship, like you were mentioning, from psychologists with disabilities and their allies. Less than half of the respondents disclosed their disability to the University Disability Service Office, and many relied on informal accommodations alone. Most participants did not disclose their disability during graduate school, internship, nor their postdoctoral application processes. Another well-published researcher in this area, Dr. Olkin, highlighted that graduate students in clinical psychology and other mental health fields with disabilities are disadvantaged in seeking field placement training. In conclusion, the researchers cited and myself are urging professional psychology programs and training sites and mental health workplaces to intentionally remove these barriers and to provide support for trainees and providers with disabilities to thrive and to be able to contribute their gifts to our patients who are in great need of diverse providers. I recognize the beneficial ways that my PsyD program eventually became proactive in being a disability ally and was willing, sometimes begrudgingly, to learn how to accommodate and ensure equal access learning environment for myself and my peers with disabilities. I'm here today to encourage my colleagues, all of you in the room, to become equally committed to ensuring an inclusive learning environment for all aspiring mental health providers in Hawaii, especially in a time like today when the need is so great. So thank you. One more participant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was beautifully said. Dr. Concepcion?
I actually thought about this morning, like in terms of like from an individual level, how can we promote equity and inclusivity and, oh my gosh, for successful outcomes for mental health providers. So I guess from my perspective, like I thought about, finding your tribe. So especially if you're dealing with something, and you feel like you're alone, find a group of others who are like-minded, who can elevate your voice with you. So I found that, as I was navigating my leadership journey through AAPA, HPA, and even like some of the friends that I made through APA. Another one is actually a friend years ago had told me about this. If there is no seat for you at the table, create your own table. So, if you can't find some of those spaces where your voice can be elevated or heard, find some of those opportunities where you can, make your voice heard, even if you have to create it for yourself, create a position, create legislation or whatnot, but create that table for yourself or the folks that you're representing. And then finally, mindful risk taking. So if you know that you're going to be opposed, be mindful in creating the different arguments in support of what you're trying to fight for. And, just think about like some of the elements that you need in order to boost your argument or, create more voices in order to feel heard or, increase your increase the likelihood of your reaching the goal that you're anticipated to achieve. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really, really powerful. I can tell you that there is so much passion and information and heart that is being shared right now. And I want to just do a little check here on our time here. We have about 15 minutes left. And I thought maybe we would switch this up by having Dr. Takashima Lakasa take our last formal question. And then we can open it up to our audience to give them opportunity in terms of inclusivity. We definitely want to hear from them, and maybe our panelists can consider weaving in some of your other really beautifully prepared responses as maybe people are asking their questions, if that's okay. I thought I'd proceed with that. Does that sound okay with everyone? Get a thumbs up. It's hard to tell in virtual land here. Sounds like we're good with the plan. Okay, good. So Dr. Takashima Lakasa, let me just fast forward this for a second. We have two questions. You could take this one or the next one. Which would feel more comfortable for you?
Oh my goodness, options.
I know, you get options today.
I feel like, we've all already shared some strategies and skills that we can use to promote EDI. So maybe I'll take the challenge and significant barriers one, which will allow me to share a little bit more vulnerably and authentically about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this work.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead. Oh, so okay. What are current or past challenges and significant barriers that you have experienced doing this work?
So there have been so many challenges and barriers. I've experienced and missteps I have taken in the years that I have been working to advance JEDI, which is a term I like to use that adds J for justice to EDI. I honestly had a hard time picking what to share in these few minutes I have. And I want to try to keep my answer short in interest of time. So sorry if it's a little disjointed because I'm trying to condense as I go. So one example is when I started in APA governance about 10 years ago, I frankly felt like a small and often invisible voice when I would speak my perspectives on diversity as an immigrant Asian woman. And sometimes, often, I left meetings feeling stifled or frustrated. And when I found the courage to vulnerably share my feelings with other AAPI colleagues and mentors, they shared their many similar experiences. So it wasn't just me. And giving and receiving that support with what I call my JEDI tribe. I have many JEDI tribes now that I've collected over the years. I have found the courage to be more vocal about my truth. And when I talk about this publicly, I always have other AAPI approach me and say, me too. But I'm happy to say that after APA's major reorganization recently, and with the pandemic and other pivotal social cultural shifts that our country is undergoing, and under new leadership of folks who are deeply committed to JEDI, there have been some corresponding shifts in APA in our strategic priorities, and there are now major initiatives throughout the organization that are meaningfully moving the needle. And so this has opened up concrete pathways for advocating for and advancing the AAPI voice within APA. So, for example, as CSL chair, Committee of State Leaders chair, I had an amazing core team of diverse women that are another of my JEDI tribes. And we worked hard and closely together to elevate diversity leadership, to prioritize diversity issues in our committee's work, and to increase access to APA governance for members from diverse and marginalized backgrounds, and to even secure funding for EDI initiatives at the state level. And as a result, our committee membership has been more diverse since I started on the committee 5 years ago. And I'll just close by saying that due in part to experiencing this belonging in the organization, and because of the challenges and barriers that I and many like me have had to overcome in the organization, I feel like I've grown so much as a psychologist, a leader, and a human over these last few years. And for me, that is actually one of the most fulfilling personal rewards of this kind of work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Takashima Lakasa. This is a beautiful work that you're doing. And it is clear that from our panel thus far is that we have only just begun to share our stories and journeys. We have so much to learn from each other, and so much to learn from you in our audience and in our virtual world. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And again, for our panelists, if there was something that you really would like to share, and as the questions come up, please, I'm happy to kind of go back to a slide and share that as well. So again, so we're going to go ahead and open it up. So if Dr. Chun, if you don't mind helping to see if there are any questions here, and I'm going to also look at the chat to see if anything is coming in. So our chat is open for questions and also comments.
I see we have a question here.
Thank you.
Hello. Check 1, 2.
Yes, welcome.
Everybody.
Hello.
Hello. You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We'd love to hear your question or comment.
I was wondering if, based on everyone's experience in your DEI spaces, how often are initiatives being informed by decolonial practice?
Good. Thank you. And for those of you who are in this space and would like a little orientation to decolonial practices, the person that asked that question, would you like to explain a little bit to our audience here?
Yeah, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Julius.
Yes,
I'm a social
thank you.
worker and a PhD student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Recently, I read an APA article from the president who spoke about integrating or at least prioritizing decolonial psychology. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts on that, or if that's a conversation that's happening in your spaces.
Well, I will say from the research side of it, my work is in looking at cultural variables that underlie race and ethnicity. And we're doing this work in Filipino communities as well as in the Latinx communities. And one way we're addressing it is by just looking at colonialism. There's a scale that, it's called the colonial mentality scale. So we're using that in our research. Also looking at other parameters like skin color, because skin color is often not measured in work in this area, and it's a powerful construct. And a lot of that stems from some colonial practices and what is valued in one culture versus the other. I will say that in academia, in my university and other universities that I've been to, it's really not addressed too much in in everyday practice. We are trying to bring that to the forefront so that people understand how it can be used in practice and research. But I think that we've only really just skimmed the surface on this. Thank you for this question.
I'm gonna add. Okay, good, it works. The in my work as a professor, of course, it's there. In our teachings, it's critical for us to all look at the values and our mindsets and our worldviews and where that's coming from and the words we're using. And that comes up in the therapy work that I do in terms of helping different family members, different individuals to take a look at how they came to their perspectives and where that came from, what kind of assumptions went with that, and how we can examine those assumptions. And people come in because they're looking for change, and gently steering folks toward examining how that can happen within themselves. And so in order to come from the mindset of privilege and that we can just settle ourselves without acknowledging and is to shift out of that settler mindset into one that recognizes that it's a gift to be here and the gratitude that must come with that, and the humility that must also come with that. So it intertwines so much in all that we do, I think.
I'll just quickly add that if there are folks who maybe don't know as much about this as they'd like to encourage folks to check out Dr. Jennifer Mullen. She's also known as the Rage Doctor. She's an inspiring thought leader and just a beautiful person. And she, decolonizing therapy is kind of her thing. And she speaks a lot about how to integrate those constructs into our personal lives, into our professional lives, into the therapy work that we do with our patients and with in supervision and all kind of aspects of our professional and personal lives. So she's a great resource on this.
Hi, I think I'm the next question. My name is Miranda. I'm a PsyD student over at Chaminade. I would love to know who inspires you.
Great. Would anybody like from our panel like to go? I can always talk, but I want to give everyone else a chance to take an answer from people in the audience.
Hello?
Yes.
I inspire myself.
Mhm.
And I hope all of you inspire yourselves too. So I'll just close with that. Just take what you're given and do the most you can with it for the good of others.
I think I think it works. I'm kind of inspired by the generation to come. One thing I didn't mention, I'm a girl mom. Sorry guys. It's a it's a lot of fun, and it also feels like a lot of responsibility because I'm inspired to be the role model that I need to be for them to have an example of what's possible and never be in a position like I may have been in other women, either from my generation and generations before, where they had to be trailblazers, or maybe some of them may have never considered that it was a possibility. So I want my daughters, as they grow up, to not question their place at the table or question whether or not they can accomplish and pursue the things that they want to do. Other people that inspire me are really everyday people. I think it's easy to admire leaders, people who have kind of like broken through the glass ceiling. I'm really inspired by, I like the terminology, Julie, the Jedi tribe, folks that are doing small things but meaningful things, and that are really moving the needle, sometimes in more powerful and concrete ways, I think, than people who are in a much higher leadership position.
I was going to say my mom, because when I think about her journey as an immigrant and just kind of navigating like different spaces as like a single woman who immigrated to the United States with only a 6th grade education, and being able to successfully purchase her own home, raise a daughter who was able to graduate from high school, college, grad school, and have her own family. It just means a lot to kind of like, think back onto some of her sacrifices. And even more so, like she's 87 and she has dementia. So it's even more so like inspiring to kind of think about like her and like how to, I guess, commemorate her legacy as she like kind of reaches that stage of her life.
I'm going to talk about the mic because I think I'm loud enough, but I like the decolonial question. And so to piggyback off of that, what decolonial practices, I guess we could call it, to me, that's just wellness, right? Just taking care of yourself as a not white person. And as a white person, it's very decolonial. So what do you guys do to take care of yourselves with all this, it's a lot of hard work, with fighting uphill, a lot of hidden and not hidden things. But yeah, what do you guys do to take care of yourselves?
What a lovely question here. Thank you so much for the question. And I'm sensitive to that we are just about out of time. I don't know how it works in the virtual space or they're in person, but we're happy to continue going. But I will say that I take care of myself by exercising, by talking to friends, by venting sometimes, by building my church. By going to church and praying and just seeking the comfort of family and friends. And just for myself, honestly, is just trying as much as I can to be in touch with my heart. I'm always asking myself frequently, if you're a friend of mine or that that I always ask, what does my heart need right now? What does my soul need right now? How can I nourish myself? And just trying to be mindful of that. Thank you for that question.
To piggyback on the decolonizing therapy piece, I presented earlier today about eco-psychology and moving treatment outdoors. So I think, finding applications of your capacities that really align with your values and align with your patient's values. And then for self-care, some of my peers in this group are part of the Aloha Mental Health Practitioners Hawai'i, and we meet on Mondays at 8:30, and it's just a free virtual space. 5:30. We meet at 5:30 on Mondays after work, and it's just drop in. Anybody can come, and our focus is on self-care. So we're not someone's therapist. We're not someone's consultant. We're just peer to peer. So please feel free to come.
What I do, I recommend to my students to look at their self-care, and then I realize I have to do the same. So I dig my fingers in the dirt. I garden, not well, but I garden, and I feel the water. I go multi-sensory and try to advocate for other people to do the same. I rub my fingers through my dog's fur as I'm petting her. I sit and close my eyes and take a moment in the middle of a busy day. So those are ideas that cost nothing.
Mhm.
I think for me, I do a number of different things, sometimes just taking a few seconds to engage in some type of mindfulness practice, taking a breath, getting grounded. Sometimes that also includes sniffing my kids. I love their smells. And just getting grounded in the snuggles that I get. I often get pinned down and assaulted on the sofa in the evening. And I really rely on my tribe. I have a group of amazing, powerful, inspiring women that I can be vulnerable with, that I can reach out to, that I can, if I need to have a pity party on myself, that they're there to sit and listen and hold space for me. But honestly, I would say that when the question first came up, I was like, what self-care? So I'm a little bit like Katie. I'm not always very successful at prioritizing that.
So before I had my stroke, and now I'm trying to work on it now, but so I'm Kapambangan, which is like a part of the Philippines where they are the foodies of the Philippines. So I used to cook a lot, something I got from my mom, and I like food, but I have to be very careful because I was diagnosed pre-diabetic. So I have to be very careful about the things that I do for my self-care. But I agree with Dr. Akra and Dr. Chun, like having your tribe. So I have people that I text on the regular whenever I have a rough day, or I send memes to. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I'm a parrot mom. I have 2 parrots at home. My parrot's name is Pogi, and he's very Filipino because earlier today, before I went to this conference, he was, as I was leaving, he said, "Psst." So, my parrot is like my child's. I live in a household full of boys, so my parrot like keeps me grounded and keeps me very happy when I'm at home. So
Wonderful. We'll give Dr. Takashima the last word here. Did you want to mention some practices?
Really, I think the primary theme that I'm hearing across everybody's responses is finding your version of the Jedi tribe. I think that from a, even an evolutionary or polyvagal standpoint, connection is the most important part of sustaining this work, which is, none of the successes or challenges I have shared today were achieved or faced alone. And I have relied heavily on collaborating with and sharing the real burden of this often painful work. My various Jedi tribes are comprised of colleagues who are committed to advancing social justice issues as I am, who I can trust to be vulnerable in my authentic self with. And even if we don't always agree, they always provide a safe and secure space for me to strive, fail, experience heartbreak and the achievement together. And so I think that connection piece, specifically related to self-care and doing this work, the example that I shared earlier about, my challenges in APA, I think for me really highlight the importance of belongingness and how, to conclude, I would like to encourage everyone to reflect on how they can prioritize belonging in the spaces in which you have influence that you are leading in, and in particular, when we're doing this necessary and difficult work.
Great, thank you so much. And I will say, in conclusion, we will wrap up. I know that there's probably some questions in the audience that we didn't get to. And for those of you who are in person, maybe you can have some conversations with those individuals. I do want to encourage the people that are in the audience and that will watch virtually, even in the future, to come talk story with us. We can all serve as mentors to each other as well, and to make this journey easier for, people in this space. We're all here, and I have some of these concluding comments, but just wanted to say that we're all here to support each other. We're all passionate about this work. You can tell that's why we're going over, because we just love it and have so much to share. Again, hopefully this is not the last time that you will hear from us. And, I would like to propose that we do something like this every year at our convention as well, and have new people be involved in this ongoing conversation. In conclusion, again, we need more education and professional development in this area. There's various ways that EDIB can be integrated within clinical practice and research. We've also talked about advocacy and the importance of that and sharing with others. Speaking up, we've heard some diversity dimensions that we don't often talk about, right? And we've also talked about, just being diverse in the workplace and what that feels like, and the courage that everybody has displayed today. I thank you, every one of our panelists for, saying yes to the call to have the honor to oversee the Diversity and Equity Steering Committee. It's really been a privilege, and I invite all of you in the audience to, come and contact us if we can join with you and be on this journey with us. Thank you so much, and aloha.